Oh, hello. Welcome back to Moon Brews. It's your Lunar Witch, and you're listening to a Haunted Happy Hour episode! Woo! It's been a little bit. And I'm so excited. I love these. These are so fun. They're also easy. I mean, who doesn't love to just read ghost stories? During this happy hour, we're going to give into the Appalachian Mountains. And I know there's going to be a whole crowd of people that are going to say, it's Appalachia, or it's Appalachian, or it's... I'm going to say how I said it my whole life. It's Appalachia or GTFO. Sorry. And honestly, people have entire podcasts about Appalachia and the Appalachian Mountains. This topic could truly be a forever topic. There are so many stories, folklore, and haunts that span across this entire mountain range, which can truly just be a podcast in itself. So, if you were born yesterday, the Appalachian Mountains are a massive, ancient mountain system that spans across eastern North America, stretching approximately 2,000 miles. It starts up north at the Canadian province of Newfoundland and travels down the east coast to central Alabama. These ancient mountains were formed over 480 million years ago. Let me repeat myself so it sinks in. 480 million years ago, making it among the oldest mountain range on Earth. The Earth. And these mountains were once as tall as the Himalayan mountains before natural erosion occurred. Unbelievable. To put things into perspective, roughly 480 million years ago, the Earth was undergoing the Gobe period. During the Gobe period, marine life was just starting to make its first steps onto land. That's when Appalachian country was born, before there were land animals or complex trees. This is literally insane. This mountain range has witnessed it all. I always talk about the energy the land can hold, and let me tell you, this is on a whole different level, and it spans across almost the entire East Coast. The Appalachian Mountains run through 13 states, including Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Maryland, Mississippi, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and all of West Virginia. If I said your state, say your prayers. I'm talking about 26.3 million people. 26.3 million people live within the boundaries of Appalachia. Let's dive into some folklore and legends to, get you all spooked before, the real campfire stories come on. And then I'm going to read first-hand accounts, stories, and tales about these isolated, mysterious, and haunted mountains during this haunted happy hour. Before we go any further, grab your drinks, friends, glass of wine, a can of beer, grab something, and join me during this haunted happy hour. I have red wine. Joey very kindly cracked open his can, his seltzer that he's drinking for me at the beginning of the show. So grab your drink, hit pause, grab your drink, and let's get back. So, a lot of the folklore that surrounds the Appalachian Mountains comes from a mixture of stories from Europe, Native American, mainly Cherokee, and biblical influences. The Mothman was born in Appalachia country. In the 1960s, the legend of Mothman erupted from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Dating back farther in the 1910s, reports of glowing orbs in North Carolina came to be. The Appalachian Mountains have deep-rooted superstitions, ghost stories, mythical creatures, and more. If you're traveling to the Appalachian Mountains, here are a few tips I found to make you a little less vulnerable, a little less haunted, or, even a little less murdered out there. You're never supposed to whistle. It is said to conjure bad spirits. If you live in Appalachian country, never look out a door or window if you hear a knock. Also, never respond if you hear your name being called. I've seen videos on TikTok of this where people are freaking out because they're hearing knocking and stuff, or people claiming that they're hearing their name. If you open a door, a window, or respond to your name being called, you're letting that entity come in. That is a gateway for them to enter. We've talked about this before. A lot of spirits aren't going to bother you unless you open that channel. It's like the Ouija board. You're opening that channel of communication. If you have a jacked up entity wiggling its way through Appalachian country, and your cabin sits on 100 acres of property in West Virginia all by its lonesome, and that entity comes up to your door and says, "Haley, don't you dare respond to it." That is letting them in. That is giving them that line of communication. Do not go into the woods after dark. That one's pretty obvious. And do not ignore the silence. If you no longer hear the birds, the bees, or animals walking, you better run. Now, let's move the planchette to the stories I have found on the internet. Starting with They Are Out There 75. This story was told in our family when I was growing up. It used to scare me so bad. My mama swore it was the truth, and she was known not to tell lies. And I should know because it was just me and her when we were growing up. Anyway, she was born and raised in a very rural and poor area of West Virginia. Her and her 7 or 8 brothers and sisters were very poor. Because of this, her father raised a garden. Now my mama nearly idolized her father and would go with him the distance from their house to the garden spot, which was a good piece off. This required that they push a wagon with wooden wheels past their neighbor's house. My mama was terrified of the old woman that lived beside them. Mama said they called her Aunt Kate. She was older and apparently had cataracts because Mama said her eyes were white. Mama said this particular summer was extremely hot and that she and her father had spent a good bit of time out in the garden, tending to the vegetables and picking what was ready. As they pushed this big wagon up and in the front of Aunt Kate's house, the old woman came out and yelled, "Harrison," which was his great-grandfather, "give me some of them beans you got there." My great-grandfather responded, "Kate, we worked hard for them beans and we ain't giving them away." The old woman laughed and said that they would regret their decision. The two proceeded up the hill to their home and went about chores and other required duties. Mama said that she thought nothing more of it until it was time to sleep. According to my mama, with so many kids, some shared the bed and some were on the floor. Mama said that she was drifting off into sleep when she heard someone or something walk towards the room where she was sleeping. Knowing the sounds of the home, she did not recognize who or what it could be. Mama always talked about how her father would tell them stories to scare them into being good. Due to this, she was easily scared. As the walking got closer, she reported covering her head and laying still, terrified of who or what was standing in the doorway. Mama reported that, whatever it was, it would turn and walk out of the room and back down the hallway, all night long. Mama said she laid there all night terrified and scared to take her head out from under the blanket. The next morning as the sun arose, the thing stopped. She stated that then she heard the familiar sound of her father moving quickly to dress. When she bolstered enough bravery, she immediately darted down the hallway and into the kitchen where her father was placing green beans into a sack. The two did not speak, but walked quickly out the door and down the hall to Aunt Kate's house with a sick full of beans. Mama said old Aunt Kate was already sitting out on her front porch, as if waiting for them to arrive. Her father said, "Old woman, take your booger back," which is an Appalachian term for a demon or a spirit. And Aunt Kate started laughing, telling them, "Don't you worry, Harrison, it won't bother you no more." Mama told other things that Aunt Kate did to allude to her being familiar with the dark side. Mama was very honest, Christian lady, like I had to go to church every time the doors were open. And I never remembered a time where I caught her in a lie or even heard her curse, and she swore Kate was into black magic. Wow, I love this story. You can hear the true country in it and the fear in the writing. It's a truly spooky Appalachian tale. Do we think Aunt Kate was able to use her black magic to conjure the Bell Witch? We know the Bell Witch lurks and haunts in these mountains. The Bell Witch is a malevolent spirit that torments, stalks, and haunts. The spirit is able to do shape-shifting and physically harm the living. There's one documented case where the Bell Witch is actually listed as a reason for death for a human being. John Bell Sr. died in 1820 after a 3-year-long mysterious illness that was deemed to be caused by a supernatural entity. making it the only case in American history where a ghost, the Bell Witch, is listed as the cause of death. So do we think it was the Bell Witch working with Aunt Kate? Or do we think Aunt Kate was doing her own, voodoo magic up in her own house? The next story is from Godzilla Drinks. I grew up here in Western Maryland. Not deer are real. They don't seem to be dangerous, but they are a thing that you will encounter here, late at night and off beaten paths. They don't like being around people, and Appalachia is a great place if you don't want to be around people. They look a lot like deer at a glance. Just typical deer don't twitch. Not like this. They look like they are there, but also aren't, and they also have absolutely no fear of people. The quote-unquote twitching is like they're popping in and out of being there fast and getting all the details wrong. Like eyes would be appearing on the wrong side of the head, for example, or I've heard of them having tentacles or actually standing upright. The typical advice is not to take another glance, though I've not heard of any confirmed cases, if a not deer ever becoming hostile once it's been spotted. The stories about them being hostile do seem to be folklore. Seems like everyone who has ever been hurt by one of these sightings hurt themselves in their panic to get away. Though we only know that because they survive, so we might have biased information, because dead men tell no lies. What they actually are is up for debate, with most people obviously not taking us seriously, but I've seen one. I was leaving my girlfriend's place one night in West Virginia, and had just turned back towards Kaiser, and suddenly, it was on the road just in front of me. It looked like it was smiling. It was huge. And then, I just didn't hit it. It just dematerialized and wasn't there anymore. Too many other people I know have seen it. With all my thinking, we all can't be that crazy. So, does this seem like a interdimensional being? Twitching and glitching of this entity reminds me of that. It wants to mimic a quote-unquote common mammal we have here on Earth, but it still just can't get the details right. It's like this entity wants to impersonate our deer to be able to stalk, obtain information, or lurk in our woods. But for what reason? Or could they be an alien race that's trying to mimic and blend in, but simply can't yet? So we are left to see not deer in the woods late at night. They are convincing if you're just passing by, but if you stay to look, you're in for a rude awakening. I lived in Pennsylvania and Jersey, and like the rural part of Jersey. I've never seen a not deer before, but I can see how that would be absolutely terrifying to witness one. I kind of believe they're not supposed to be here, and they're trying to mimic a common mammal that we have that roams and grazes. You never look out the window and be like, oh my god, a deer, because that's normal, especially in this area. So maybe it's something, an entity, an alien perhaps, that is trying to mimic something to make it seem normal, but it just can't get it right. My next story is from Lex from You Good Pod. My friends and I decided to take a smoke ride one night. Now my friend, the driver, loves taking us on back roads when we go on smoke rides. It's me, her, and two guys in the back seat, and we're all on this back road getting nice and cloudy. We came to a stop sign to turn right onto this little bridge, and we all saw someone standing on the bridge. But when we turned around after passing through the bridge, the person was gone. So I'm like, y'all saw that person on the bridge, right? Because I'm thinking, I'm high as F, tripping out. But everyone else in the car said they saw someone. And there was nowhere a live person could have gone without us at least seeing them. So we concluded we just saw a ghost. And the other friends of mine have confirmed that they saw the same thing on that bridge at different times. It scared the shit out of us. We put out the blunt and booked it back to the main road. It's always a different scare when it literally removes you from reality that you immediately stop what you're doing. We've all been there, and it's truly terrifying. When you're, trying to do something and you're so panicked and so scared, it just knocks you back so hard. I wonder if it was a covered bridge, because almost every single covered bridge and their mother in America is haunted as hell. The next story is from Blues with Beer. Once I was with a girl on Big Frog Mountain at dusk, miles away from anyone. We decided to walk up a trail when right behind the car I stepped in a mud puddle with odd-looking light brownish water. I pointed the unusual color to her and we started walking. Not far up the trail, she started getting scared and we went back to the car. In the car, we were sitting in the front seat and she had her hand draped out the window. I felt an odd sensation on my back. It had happened before when people were behind me, and I told her to pull her hand in. A few minutes later, I felt the sensation on my back again, but it felt more urgent. A few minutes later, it felt like someone had stuck a live wire up my back. I sat up, started the car, and headed back down the mountain. She was obviously confused and asked me what was wrong. I replied that I didn't know, but something was wrong. We went back to my parents' house and was assured by them that the family was okay. Having calmed down some, we ate a little dinner, then started to leave. After I opened the car door for her, I walked around the back of the car. While walking, I glanced at the back of the car and saw handprints of the same color of the mysterious mud puddle on the car. The last one was over the back window. It was obvious someone was watching us while inching their way to the front of the driver's side window. When I saw the handprints, it was like being hit with a lightning bolt, and I knew what had happened. Cold chills ran all over me. I got her out of the car, and as soon as she saw the prints, she knew too. This story is the absolute truth, so help me, I will never forget it. Dang, that is terrifying. You either have an entity on your hands or a stalker, so I'm not sure which one it is. There's probably a lot of people roaming those woods too. But what a story. I love how you were able to point out this discoloration of this mud puddle and how it was odd to you, and there was a bad vibe anyway, so you guys were relaxing in the car, and you felt this presence. It wasn't on your back, but it was right behind you in the car. And your presence was then confirmed later by the handprints on the back of the freaking car. I mean, that's a story for one. Okay, my next story is from Anonymous. I'm actually in Southwest Virginia, about an hour or so outside of Roanoke. I live in the middle of nowhere. It was like 5:30 a.m., and I was about to leave for work. This was in the middle of winter, and it was still pitch black. After smoking about half of my cigarette, I heard a loud screeching noise, and every inch of my body was covered in chills. Horrifying, especially being outside on my back porch, basically in the middle of the woods by myself. I threw my cigarette and hauled ass into the house to finish getting ready. I couldn't find my flashlight during this, so I couldn't shine to see, but after explaining the situation to my elderly neighbor that evening after work, I was told that the same thing happened to her about 20 years before my incident. There's actually a story local to me called The Woman at Panther Rock, where she was brutally attacked by a panther and had succumbed to her injuries on this very large boulder that sits by the road on the way to my house. My neighbor is huge into folklore, and she claims that the beast still may live today. I never go outside at night anymore. I never go outside at night by myself anymore here at home. I make my boyfriend go with me, or I bring my 9mm with me if it's emergent. Something screeching in the woods is never going to sit right with me. I used to live in an area that was super woodsy, and when the dog has to go out in the pitch black and you have to either wait for her to come back or you're just staring out into the black abyss, it's truly terrifying. Having an experience of something screeching out there while I'm waiting out there would change my life forever. The next story is from Appalachian Baby. In 2007, I was DD, stone cold sober, for my boyfriend and friends. He and I went back to his parents' house in southern West Virginia. His parents were out of town and he was pissed drunk. I got him, I put him to bed, and I went out back to have a smoke. I didn't turn on a light and it was typical Appalachian dark. I sat down on the porch swing, lit up, and all of a sudden hear what sounds like a woman being absolutely bloodied murdered about 100 feet away from me. I threw my cig and got into the house quick, turned on the porch light, and saw what only can be described as a huge black panther running back and forth inside the fence, absolutely screaming and screeching its head off because I guess it thought it was trapped inside the fence. I watched it until it figured out how to jump back and run off, up into the mountain. I think only one person has ever truly believed me. This is insane. These Black Panther stories are so interesting. So Black Panthers do not exist in this area. Rather, Black Panthers do not live in the wild in North America, period, at all. They're not existent here. So what the hell are people seeing? Doing more of a search on the internet, there's this whole thing about these Black Panther sightings. It seems like hundreds of people are seeing a Black Panther entity in the woods of Appalachia. Could this be some sort of demonic creature that was summoned in one time in the past and still exists today? Is it a dark spirit that was used by maybe the Native Americans as protection that now roams and wanders free into the night? It seems like it does not want to be spotted, and when it is, it's very late at night, as if it's trying to hide within the shadows. But what a bizarre thing to read about all these people experiencing this Black Panther of some sort. So I'm onto my last story of the night by Mission Care 9841, and it is a doozy, so buckle up. So this is no shit the creepiest thing that has ever happened to me. I recently purchased a small farm in Southwest Virginia. A little backstory on me: I'm from the area, went to a local high school, spent 5 years in the army, and deployed to Afghanistan. I've been married for almost 10 years. Anyways, my farm is in a small community. My land is about 20 acres of forest connected to a small mountain. I love how he keeps using small. His small farm is on 20 acres of property, with the surrounding land of being hundreds of acres long, possibly thousands of acres of heavily forested wilderness and small areas for cattle to graze. It's directly at the base of the East River Mountain and the Jefferson National Forest, separated by a highway and maybe a 20 to 30 acre property. So he's isolated. He's alone out there. Anyways, since I moved into this place, I got this odd feeling that something was watching me when I would go outside at night. But I just shrugged it off as nothing and kept doing my thing. Well, about a week and a half ago, I'm outside about 4:30 a.m. getting ready for the day when I start to hear what sounds like someone speaking, just right outside the range where I wouldn't be able to understand what's being said. Naturally, I assume someone is trespassing, so I grab my AR-15 and walk into the tree line to see if I can locate them. Keep in mind, it's still pitch black outside. I see at the top of the large hill a light that I assume is the headlight or flashlight of said trespasser. I immediately shine my light at them and yell at them that they're on my property. The light continues to move about the woods like whoever controlled it didn't hear me or see my light, so I grabbed my dog and started to head up the hill. The forest is pretty dense and it's also pitch black, so I was making slow progress. Well, when I got within, I say 150 feet, the lights cut off. I immediately yell, "This is private property," while slowly moving to where I saw the light turn off. I walk maybe another 100 yards, scanning the trees with my headlamp, and I lock onto two big-ass green glowing eyes and immediately freeze. Me and these eyes are locked onto one another, and I notice however I move, this thing mimics me perfectly. It mimics my movements in real time with absolutely zero lag. I move my leg to the left, it does so back perfectly. It trips me out so bad that I say out loud, "Is this a mirror in the woods?" Completely perplexed at how it mimics my movements, and I shit you not, this thing shakes its head no. I immediately almost piss on myself and get this overwhelming sense of dread that washes over me. I immediately put my AR-15 to my shoulder and said out loud, "If you come back in my direction 1 inch, I'ma smoke you." This thing immediately drops behind the brush, and I lose sight of it. I immediately rack my AR-15, and it pops back up. I say out loud, "I'ma back down the hill, and you do whatever you were doing." And this thing looks at me for another 10 seconds or so, and then out of nowhere, bolts to the right of my left over the hill in what sounded like an attempt to flank me. I immediately began backing down the hill fast, fighting the urge to turn my back to where it was. Needless to say, I made it home, went inside, locked my door, and was absolutely shocked at what just happened. The crazy part is that my dog never acknowledged the thing was there. It was like my dog couldn't detect it at all. This thing looked like a 7-foot tall skin and bones human with a honey spine that ran on all fours. I've racked my brain trying to figure out what it was. Maybe a sick bear? A sick person? Literally nothing makes sense. For all those who say that I'm lying, all I have to say is believe what you want. I could care less. This shit really happened, and it changed the way I look at the world. This is insane. This story is insane. That's why I left it for the last one. Another thing that's like mimicking in the Appalachian world, right? Mimicking your movements, maybe to try to trip you out and freak you out, but it also was smart enough to run away from a gun because it knew it could be injured. So it can't be like paranormal-like because then it would already be dead. So it must be alive somehow. What I think it's I hate using this word, an SW, a flesh pedestrian, because I think they're smart enough to know what the hell is going on. They're shapeshifters, and I believe they are paranormal, but I also feel like they have a body of some sort. So I believe he saw a flesh pedestrian mimicking him out in the woods, and for some reason wanting to get his attention, either drawing him away from danger or drawing him to it, because this thing totally could have got him, right? If it were to lunge at him, unless it was that fearful of a gun. I've never heard of one mimicking the movement of a human being, but Lord, what a story that was. If you have any Appalachian stories, send your tales to moonbrewspodcast@gmail.com, and we may read your spooky tale.